Well, more woes for the African National Congress ahead of its January 8th anniversary celebrations in Polokwane. The Lilian Ngoyi Memorial Lecture has just been cancelled in Lebowakgomo, Limpopo. This is due to non-compliance with COVID-19 regulations. Now, President Ramaphosa was expected to make the keynote address. Our reporter Pule Letshwiti-Jones is in Lebowakgomo and has been tracking the story for us. He joins us now for an update. Pule, always a pleasure speaking to you. So, what did the ANC say exactly about the incident that took place?
Well, you know, Faith, they just said that there was a breach of non-compliance in regulations to the COVID-19 rules. But most importantly, what we understand is that these are some of the things we witnessed upon arrival at the event, especially the venue, where the wall was accommodating some of the ANC Womens League members and, of course, officials who were anticipating, of course, a memorial lecture with the president having to be the keynote speaker. So when we got there, we got to realize that there wasn't actually a proper contact tracing put in place. Sanitizers as well for guests coming in was not also in place. The scanners also had a bit of a problem when we had to walk in, and there was a bit of pushing and shoving at the door with some of the ANC Women's League members who tried to make their way in. Of course, with the minimum police officials at the door, they tried to control the crowd, saying they cannot enter as the venue was already filled up to capacity. And, you know, just 5 minutes as the event was underway, we do understand that there was an instruction. We saw Deputy Minister of Security there, as he got up, going to the president, speaking to him, whispering a few details into him. From there onwards, we saw the president actually, you know, standing up from where he was sitting and then being escorted out. But he was not only the only one official was being escorted out, he was then followed by the premier of the province, Steli Matabata. They were then evacuated out of the building. And therefore, from there onwards, we heard an announcement which was made by the Free State Premier, Sisi Ntombela, which announced that due to a breach of COVID-19 regulations, the event can no longer take place, and therefore they had to cancel it. But if you listen to Pule Mabe here in this interview and the briefing he held earlier, he was quite clear to say this was not a security threat posing some of the senior officials who attended the event, including the state's number one. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Well, there was never a security threat. We have seen people who are here were wearing black, green and gold, members of the ANC. You know, they displayed their courage today. Unfortunately, now we are no longer allowed to gather in bigger numbers than we would have done before COVID-19. You know, so we are drawing lessons, even as we prepare for the event that will be happening this coming weekend. We are really drawing critical lessons out of this, and we must thank the leadership of the ANC Womens League for them to have taken a stand that we cannot continue under these conditions.
So ANC spokesperson Pule is saying that there is no security threat. However, when it comes to the planning, I mean, we all understand that we've been in a COVID-19 pandemic for the last 2 years. So COVID-19 is no new phenomenon to us all. So why was there no actually additional measures or considerations made to even the capacity of the building, the ventilation and the like, especially knowing that this is a very crucial, critical, indeed, weekend for the African National Congress?
Definitely very good question, Faith. And what we also understand is that this also comes just a few months before we saw some of those political rallies being held, outdoors, where even some of the events were actually super spreader events, you know, breaking some of those COVID-19 regulations. But furthermore, what's important here is that when we spoke to the Secretary General of the ANC Women's League and the President of the ANC Women's League, Bathabile Dlamini, they're quite clear that they hadn't anticipated that this incident would actually happen, and they had undermined the number of the turnout that would actually take place, or the number of people who would actually come to the venue. And therefore, while they're not conceding that there was probably some sort of a disorganization from their side, they're saying that the event has been cancelled and they will have to go back to a drawing board, find a proper venue which will then accommodate most of the ANC Women's League members and ensure that there are safety measures put in place. And that's where the president will then have to address, or rather have the keynote address and address some of the ANC Women's League members. But also, while that's the case, they actually have assured us that the president is in safe hands, and the ANC saying they don't want to be alarmists, and that they do know that the only reason why he was actually evacuated out of the building was due to the COVID-19 COVID-19 regulations being breached. And from there onwards, they said that they would be releasing a joint statement with the ANC Womens League. But we spoke to the ANC NEC member Pule Letshwiti-Jones earlier on, and this is what he had to say about the matter as well.
The president left after he was advised that we are not complying with the required regulations. And as a law-abiding leader and a responsible leader, he had to vacate. There's no issue of any threat.
Yes.
The country is still intact. We are safe in South Africa. We have a legitimate government. Nobody is under threat. Everybody so far, it's safe. All citizens must be guaranteed.
Well, then in that regard, Pule, as you're speaking about the ANC Womens League, what has been the official response from the ANC Womens League? It must be quite a disappointment to see the president as well as the premier of the province being whisked away, and one would anticipate that this should be one of the iconic events of the leading up to the January 8th statement. And they must not be too happy about this.
Well, definitely, this memorial lecture was supposed to be a significant program, especially in celebration of Ma'am Lilian Ngoyi. But what we also understand is that they're saying that while this had to be cancelled, they did not realize that things would actually turn out to be this sour. And now that the event has been cancelled, they'll be looking at Plan B, which is now having to have an alternative venue to host the memorial lecture once again. But this, of course, sends a strong message to the ANC ahead of the January 8th 110th anniversary to have, even much more stricter COVID-19 regulations in place, which will ensure that what happened today does not actually also disrupt the event on Saturday. Just earlier on today, the NEC member Nomvula Mkonyane said that the party had, of course, gradually come to the process of having to finalize everything, and that there was an NEC meeting that sat actually this afternoon to try and ensure that all protocols will be adhered to. Now, earlier on, Pule Mabe was saying that, the organization is such a big organization and people are happy to be, or rather attend ANC events. But, critically speaking, the party would actually want to ensure that they do not turn a blind eye to some of those members who want to try and force their way into the venue, and that they have actually a much more beefed up security and law enforcement agency to ensure that COVID-19 regulations are not breached and that the event does smoothly take and go underway.
We'll leave it there. Reporter Pule Letshwiti-Jones there out in Lebowakgomo, just giving us the latest regarding that Lilian Ngoyi Memorial Lecture that was due to take place today, seeing that it has been cancelled following, from what we understand, a violation of COVID-19 regulations. Well, as the story develops, of course, we'll keep you up to date with it. Well, to